Cooksy Mob, what's happening? How many of you guys have ever wanted to own a factory bike? Well, guess what? It turns out you can. If they race it at Loretta Lynn's, you can buy that thing. There is a claiming rule. So what this rule is to keep crazy people from putting too much money into a bike raced at an amateur race. This is an amateur rule for amateur races. And what it is at Loretta Lynn's is if you pay double the retail price of somebody's bike in your race, there's a lot of specifics, you get to take home their bike. But you have to give them, like, say if the bike costs $9,000, you got to give them $18,000. Fair enough, right? So that keeps you from putting too much expensive stuff. But I think they probably ought to raise that up just a little bit because the parts are so expensive. Maybe go like 2.5. But needless to say, this happened. So this claiming rule is very, I don't know if I'm a fan of claiming rules or not. I don't want to give up my stuff. Even, I would rather they tear you down and just make sure it's legal rather than just give it to somebody else. But it's very effective in keeping a lot of people from running factory bikes. A lot of these factories have not run their best machines at this race for fear of this happening. And it has happened in the past. Mike Alessi had one. There's been a few, very few incidents where these bikes have been purchased. And, you know, sometimes you get good value out of your bike when you're done with it. Great, okay, well, shoot, I flipped it for twice the value. Perfect. Or, you know, or you're like, crap, I had way too much into that bike, and you lose. So that's on you. But where this one gets really tricky is, wow, there's a lot of stuff on here that probably shouldn't have been on here. Those parts that are called unobtainium, factory parts that people cannot buy. And that's where this one gets weird. But if a rider races a bike and then they say, oh, you cannot claim this bike and they won't give it to you, that's their choice. They can do that. I mean, you can't just take someone's bike. But they will be banned from racing for up to 1 year, or for a minimum of 1 year. I think they could possibly even be banned for further, depending on what, you know, how it went down. So anyway, there was a claim on Deegan's bike and it got ugly. So remember, guys, subscribe to this channel. It is blowing up. I mean, shoot, just the last video, 20,000 views. Well, I only got 11,000 subscribers, so some of you guys are watching it and not subscribing. So those of you who have subscribed, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you guys. You guys kick ass. And if you haven't, just hit it. So anyway, guys, if you raced Loretta's and got tired, maybe you should hit up my buddy Coach Rob Beams at CompleteRacingSolutions.com. He's got programs for everybody. You can go starting right around 20 bucks, just, you know, get you on an entry-level program. He's got, I mean, he does everything over there. He'll make you into a finely tuned athlete, even if you work a day job. His programs work around your schedule and your time. I've done the programs. They're awesome. And he works with concrete data. He doesn't guess. He doesn't have one program for everybody. He creates a custom program for every single person based on your physical capabilities and your physical growth and how much you improve. If you want to have a badass garage, hit up Epic Garage Designs. They do flooring, bike racks. If you really want to be the envy of your neighborhood, hit up Epic Garage Designs. If you have a UTV or Maverick or Polaris or one of these badass off-road vehicles, you like rock climbing, mud running, whatever you do, revolutionor.com. That's Revolution Off-Road. That's revolutionor.com. So, all right, guys, without further ado.
I'm in the empire business.
Everybody love everybody!
You all know exactly who I am.
All right, guys, so now I've explained kind of what the claiming rule is and why it's in place. Let me just say, I've been around a lot of forms of racing, and whenever you claim somebody's equipment, it never goes over smoothly. Even if you're paying above market value, nobody wants to hand over their stuff. It sucks. It's kind of a dirty move when somebody does that to you, but if you know somebody's cheating or doing something they shouldn't do, it's a great way to really kind of keep it a level playing field. So the best way to do it is have your bike, like say if, you know, retail value on your bike's $9,000 and don't put over $9,000 into it. That's it. I mean, suspension, wheels, pipe. You probably should go up to about 2.5 times, but because stuff is so expensive these days. But with that said, after the 250B race, Brennan Schofield put in a claim for Haiden Deegan's Star Yamaha 250. Yes, I say Star Factory 250 because I think they were riding a bike they shouldn't have been riding, which is why all the drama happened. Had they used off-the-shelf parts, they could have sold this bike to him no problem, made a huge profit, and laughed all the way home. Instead, I think they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and they had some stuff in this motor that they, A, was illegal, or B, didn't want anyone to see. Either way, it's not a good look for Yamaha, not a good look for the Deegans. And Haiden Deegan needs no help. So whomever decided to bring this factory bike to the ranch, come on, man, really? That was a bad call. That was a very bad call. Haiden Deegan is so talented and so good. He doesn't need it. When you guys put the regular motor back in for the final schoolboy race, because they were afraid this might happen again, and somebody else would claim the bike, he did better. He dominated. This kid doesn't need it. He's a generational talent, just like Jet Lawrence and some of these other guys. Do not pull shit like this. You don't need to. Hayden's too good. He doesn't need this. All this does is distract, cause noise, and make problems. So let me explain how it all happened. So Brennan, after the race, within 30 minutes, you have to make your claim. He does. He goes, makes the claim, has, apparently it was 17,500 is what he needed, or 17,000 allegedly, somewhere around there. Well, Tim Cotter is an MX Sports official, not the AMA official. He is a promoter. He works for a promoter. He is not part of the rules body. He's not. Not at this race anyway, maybe at some other races, but not at this one. Somehow, he gets this kid in a room by himself, interrogating him. Why are you doing this? What's your problem? Why would you do this to him? Whoa, 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 whoa. It's just really bullying him. This is straight mob tactics. This is the kind of shit that pisses me off. If that were my kid, and Tim Cotter singles him out, puts him in a room by himself, and bullies him like this, shit wouldn't end smooth. Not cool. Tim Cotter, I've heard a lot of things about Tim Cotter. I've heard he's a bully. I've heard he abuses his power. I've heard a lot of these things. I've just dismissed him as people maybe had bad experiences with him. Maybe they're right, because this is a bad look for him. It's a bad look for MX Sports. So, and guess who the only guy he lets in that room is? Brian Deegan. Yeah, allegedly he lets Brian Deegan in there. So Brian Deegan comes in. Luckily, Brian Deegan's a class act, and he's not going to bully some kid. But he did ask him, like, why are you doing this? Why would you make Haiden do, why would you accuse him of this? And he pulled the sympathetic card, which is smart, because Brian knows his shit, and Brian knows how this could come off, and how it's going to come off. But my point is, Haiden didn't need the help anyway, guys. Haiden didn't need the help. Why'd you guys do this? So, okay, now the AMA official gets word of what's happening, breaks this up. Like, what are you doing with this kid in a room? Why are you interrogating him like he's in the mafia? Like, come on, man. Or he committed a crime and you're going to break him? Ridiculous, ridiculous. Good on Brennan for standing up to the big bully Tim Cotter and not folding to the general, which the general, like I say, is a class act, and I'm sure he didn't put a ton of pressure, but let's be honest, if you're a 17-year-old kid and the Metal Militia general, Brian Deegan, comes in there and he's asking you and kind of talking to you after this crazy man, Tim Cotter, has just bullied you, that's got to be pretty intimidating. So good on Brennan for holding his own ground, but that should never, ever happen. So the AMA official breaks it up and says, no, 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 you're welcome to do this. You got the money, you did it exactly how you're supposed to according to the rule book. And then the issue was, Haiden needed the bike. Haiden needed the bike for the schoolboy race the next day. Okay, no problem. They didn't have a proper impound set up, so they ended up taking it to one of the AMA officials' trailers and just putting it in the trailer, locking it up. They were going to give the bike back to Star 2 hours before, allegedly. They're going to give it back to Star 2 hours before the moto to get it ready. Allegedly, any parts they took off the bike or exchanged, if they were on the bike when it was purchased, if those parts came off, they went right to Brennan, and the new parts were his also. So if they replaced the motor, he had two motors. That's just the way it went. And they were going to make sure he didn't blow it up or anything over the finish line and just do some stupid stuff. they would have penalized him. But the AMA did exactly what they should do. They locked the bike up. So this is all happening. So later on in the evening, Deegan's popular. Deegan's got a strong contingent, as most of you guys know. Most of you guys are probably part of it. I'm a believer in the kid too. The kid's awesome, and they're great for the sport. They have so much. They were harassing this kid's camp, yelling at him, saying stuff. Keep in mind, it's dark. You're in the trees. There's not a lot of police protection around that area. It got a little nerve-wracking. And then his trainer, Matt Walker, no longer his trainer. I don't know the details on that, but Matt Walker calls him back to go over allegedly to go over. Matt said he just called him because he saw him in the golf cart. Someone else told me he called him to go over race, debrief, which is pretty common at these races. So anyway, Brennan goes over there and he is somewhat ambushed or bumps into Donnie Luch from Yamaha, who has Matt Walker there. And they literally just lay into the kid. Why are you doing this? Why would you do this? You can't do this. It's going to cause problems. You ever want to be anything in this sport, you don't want to do stuff like this. And they went as far as to grab his hometown sponsor in Canada, who owns a Yamaha dealership, and tell this Yamaha dealership, allegedly, he may lose his franchise if this is done this way. How messed up is that? So allegedly, they ended up, after it got really ugly, people were threatening to beat up other people. People were kicked out of the camp. It got really ugly. It was a bad scene. Brennan and his dad didn't want anything else to do with it. Allegedly, Donnie from Yamaha offered 2 motors and he could ride Hayden's bike for his YouTube channel, which was the whole idea anyway, is after this race, if he has his bike and Hayden's bike and he goes out and does a test, that's good YouTube content. By the way, I'll put his YouTube in the bottom here, or his Facebook. Let's get this guy, let's get Brennan some followers. Let's turn a negative into a positive here. But he decides, allegedly they offered him 2 motors and he gets to ride Hayden's bike if they drop this. At this point, I'm not gonna lie, they're a little intimidated. It's damn near 10 p.m. at night at Loretta's. It's dark. They're essentially in the forest. People are threatening them. So they just dropped it. They dropped it, they let it go, they brought the bike back, that was it. Yamaha brought the bike back, put an off-the-shelf motor in it for the final schoolboy race, which Hayden dominated. It was after the Pro Sport. Pro Sport guys were doing 153s. Hayden did a 151. Does he need this stupid factory part or whatever it was in that motor? Hell no. He's probably better without it. So what are they doing? Anyway, this whole situation could have been avoided if they just ran the stock motor. If they just ran an off-the-shelf motor, they could have said, Brennan, great, you overpaid for a bike. Good for you. You can have it after he's done. Everybody wins. But the fact that they didn't speaks volumes about what was in that motor and that maybe they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Anyway, let me know what you guys think and we'll go from there. Later.